Hey, it's Gerre Heron. It's 4th of July weekend in Phoenix 2021. And this has become a little bit of a tradition for me to, do a little video on 4th of July weekend, celebrate being a legal immigrant and a very proud American citizen and patriot. And 2 years ago, I did it for the Walkaway campaign, and that kind of started it, or maybe 3 years ago. And there's a couple of things that I'm seeing in the GOP, in the various parts of the GOP in politics that I find incredibly alarming, particularly as an out gay man and a red-pilled liberal. And I want to kind of speak to it. And I'm involved with, I'm voting Republican. I've been involved with the Patriot Party in Arizona. I have been contributing time and effort to various campaigns. So, and I am incredibly informed. I get up very, very early. I probably spend the first 2.5 hours of my day reading the news, and it's not the standard news. I basically read everything. I go through Flipboard, I go onto Twitter, and then I go on to Facebook, and I'm very well informed, and I read everything European, Australian, UK, American politics. And I think the thing that I find very alarming about a lot of people that are involved in politics, particularly grassroots politics, they have no idea about the issues that are going on because they're not informed. And a part of it, I can excuse this, is that it's just not their realm of knowledge. It's not the place that they're coming from. And in some ways, I have a unique perspective. And my uniqueness is that I was born and raised in a British colony in Africa, my first 21 years, and it was very conservative. And literally, you can imagine Rhodesia as if it was a country run by the Arizona Patriots. That's exactly what it was. Very orderly, very proud, very conservative, and I lived through and fought in a bush war. So I was a child when the farm attack started, and this was the guerrilla incursion, Marxist communist guerrilla incursion that were based out of Zambia, Mozambique, and they were trained by Cubans and Chinese. And so I watched that. My parents moved in incredibly conservative circles. There was a time when the closest friends that my parents had were all assistant commissioners. I think there were 5 at the time. So this is the place that I grew up in. And I was always with children. You inherit your parents' worldviews and their politics, things like that. And I was a young gay man. And so the contradiction for me was, understanding, feeling this and figuring out, well, I'm in the wrong place. And I have homophobic parents, I have homophobic families, I live in a homophobic society, and it was illegal. And how do you deal with that? Well, I had to leave the country. We all had to leave the country. And I spent 8 years in London. I spent 10 years in New York City. I spent way too many years in New Jersey. And I spent 10 years in Arizona. So I think it does give me a unique perspective. And on the gay civil rights part, I was there in London. I was there in the late 1970s. And I want to talk about this because it's starting to be involved in GOP politics, particularly with this intrusion of gender dysphoria, and particularly log cabin Republicans. And if we don't deal with this, it is going to be a rift that I think we're not going to get over. So go back to trying to figure out, where we are with pride and the rainbow flag. And it's not a flag, it's a banner. Old Glory is a flag. The Union Jack is a flag. Gay pride is a banner. And I want to, when I talk to Republicans, I am so struck by how uninformed a lot of them are. And I forgive them. It's not their background, and it is my background. So for me, I had to deal with my sexuality in London, and it was a late 1970s. It was a great place to deal with it and understand something, that I came out with the socialist left. Why? Because the socialist left were the ones campaigning for gay civil rights, and the conservatives, the Tories, never were. And they were quite prepared to live lives of lies and fraud and get married and raise children and have, clandestine liaisons, sexual liaisons, and sometimes even with rent boys, so paid prostitutes. And that was okay. It was never okay for me because it was a lie and it was a cheat. And I knew there was certainly so much more to me in my sexuality than to do that. So I came out through this. My education was through the left, and put in perspective the rainbow flag. So late 1970s, you have to understand where we were 10 years after the Stonewall riots in the United States. And 1979, the Gay Civil Rights March, and it was not Pride back then. And despite what anybody wants to tell you about gay history, I was there. And the pride flag was, or the rainbow flag was from the anti-nuclear movement. This was, and I even have, I think somewhere, a little wooden rainbow pin. And I was one of those anti-nuclear people because I'm a green. I love this earth and respect it. And I think, quite frankly, the rainbow flag was usurped after the Stonewall riots. And let's put this in perspective. In 1969, what happened with the Stonewall riots, and of course there's a lot of revisionary history where they want you to believe that transgender were the people that started. It wasn't. It was drag queens. It was a pub on Christopher Street in Greenwich Village that had been constantly harassed by the police. And that week, Judy Garland died. And why is Judy Garland significant? Because for some reason homosexuals absolutely loved Judy Garland, and she suddenly died unexpectedly in her 40s. And so there was a lot of anger, a lot of upset. So when the police finally raided, it was the wrong time to be dealing, and the gay men rebelled. So 10 years after that, we had a celebration, and I was one of those irritating young activists that was, putting these little round medallion stickers all over the underground, the purple and lavender of the Pride March, in 79. And want people to understand what those gay liberation marches were about. It was informing the public that we're here, and we are like you. Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Sailor, we're just like you. You do know homosexuals. We're not deviants. We're quite frankly very ordinary. And that march was 99% ordinary people wearing ordinary clothes, just walking like you. This is what a homosexual looks like. They're not monsters. And I was actually outed in that march. And the march ended up in Hyde Park, and I was with friends, and someone said to me, "Oh, you're on camera." And of course I turned around and I looked right into this camera, and it was one of those news shows that I think it was on Monday, and I'm thinking, well, no one's ever going to see that. Well, yeah, everyone saw it. So I was out. I went to work the next day and no one said a word. And then there was this sort of trendy woman who worked there with thigh-high leather boots and stiletto boots and crazy makeup and very alternative, and came to me and said, "Oh, I hear you're a star." I'm like, "Oh crap, everyone's seen." And it was like, okay, so I'm out. And I wasn't out to my parents. And when I did tell my parents, and my Catholic father was like, "Well, it's sodomy and it's buggery, and I will never accept it." My mother was, "Well, what did I do wrong?" And sort of brought it on herself. It's nothing to do with my mother. And my dad's 98, my mum's 88. They will go to their graves homophobes, and it's just something that I've had to deal with, and I've come to terms with it. Back to the gay march, 1980, the march. So a year later, by this time there was a sprinkling, a dozen perhaps, of what has become the pride marches of current today, where you have a crazy dress, drag queen dress, carnival dress, attention-seeking, outrageous people. And the parades were lined by the British Constabulary, and mostly because they thought there was going to be trouble, not from the gay people, but from people who hated gay people, that there was going to be violence. And quite frankly, the police were hostile. I can remember the police just staring at you with absolute hate. And the march started, and then all of a sudden there was some commotion. And what happened was that one of the drag queens had an outrageous hat that he had made, and he had an axe or a machete or some sort of cutting instrument in as part of his costume. And a policeman in conversation said, you really shouldn't have that. It's an offensive weapon. Can you take it out of your hat, put it in your purse? And he didn't care, took it out, no problem, we're not going to fight with the police, put it in his purse. He took 2 steps, and the policeman tapped him on the shoulder and said, can I look in your purse? Or handbag, as the English say. And so he did. And the policeman said, well, I'm arresting you for having a concealed offensive weapon. And so he did. And the police pounced on him. And of course, then the drag queens pounced on them. And there was just this breakout. And the word spread throughout the parade. And they were put in a paddy wagon, and they were, sent off to Bow Street Police Station. So the parade stopped, turned around, and we all marched on Bow Street Police Station. And we stood there screaming, shouting for the release. This was a complete con of an arrest. And this is again my eyewitness, I looked up, and here is a British policeman urinating down on the gay people. So that's the context of what I grew up with. And I can give you tons of other examples of, interactions with British police and their hate and targeting gay men. And I understand something from, if you are a Republican, you are conservative, and you have no knowledge of this, and quite frankly, you probably, consider yourself Christian, moralist, and in your behavior. So if you have a pressure cooker of men, and men are very sexual, and you suppress them, and you don't give them an outlet, and you attack them in their gay pubs at open time, which I experience all the time with homophobic skinheads. They will find outlets. They will find outlets in men's toilets. They will find outlets in sex rooms and nightclubs. They will find outlets in parks. I don't condone that behavior, but that's just a fact. And we had British police that would do things in what we call it as agent provocateur. They were entrapping gay men into committing crimes. So the police would be in ceilings in public restrooms like in Hyde Park, looking down, watching men sit on their toilets, and watching them urinate. That's how bad it was. And of course, you flip through to now, the parades have become, in my mind, a hedonistic orgy, and I will have no part of it, because my biggest fear is that if we don't have the support, as 5.6% of the population, if we don't have the support of the majority voting bloc, we're going to lose the civil rights that were hard fought for. And what are those rights? And we are federally protected. The right to be able to be free of discrimination in employment, the free of discrimination in housing, be able to walk down the street without fear of violence. Those are the basic rights. Unfortunately, I think what pride has become is that they want special rights. They're without boundaries. They are so consumed with their sexual freedom. They really think that everybody should be indoctrinated, and particularly children, into that. And I'm seeing things that are incredibly alarming to me in the GOP. So on the one side, we have the crazy leftists. We have the Democratic Party, which is literally the party of Sharia law, that will condone this sort of crazy behavior, as long as your LGBTQ, what have you, crazy letters on it. They don't analyze it, they don't debate it, they just endorse it. And now I'm seeing on the right side the Republicans and a pushback from the Republicans. And when I look at Republicans, and I am in a very, very strange position, I am really center left, maybe some center right sometimes, and I'm looking at the GOP, and I think there's a bunch of the GOP that are the standard, old guard, maybe even senior GOP, who didn't like Trump, didn't like his manners, didn't like his haircut, didn't like his orange skin. There are the rhinos, and quite frankly, the rhinos are blue dog Democrats. That's what they are. And there's no longer any conservative Democrats. They're all gone. They've gone to this, far left, anarchist, Marxist, communist, whatever you want to call them. And then, of course, you have the patriots. You have the people who are, hardened Trump supporters and patriots and love America. Now I'm seeing things, and I'm involved with them, that I find very, very disturbing. So when I was involved with the walkaway campaign, this was, Brandon Straker's original idea, walk away from the Democrats. Applaud him for doing that. Well, the mistake he made was he let in what he considered patriots. So anybody who supported them could be involved. And then what happened with the forums, all of a sudden you have all these evangelicals and Christians saying, oh, I'm so glad you found Jesus. I'm so glad you came to Jesus. And I'm going, no, it's like, I walked away from the Democrats. What's it got to do with Christianity? And by the way, you're a Republican. What the hell are you doing in this group? And the forums became as bitter and vile as Nextdoor.com or Twitter. And there was a lot of nonsense went on, and I was finally, pushed out of that group. And so, I'm seeing on the same sort of bitterness in the Patriot forums, and I'm starting to see, you're a degenerate, you're a pervert, that sort of language that really wasn't part of it. And I think part of what's happening is this fervor for, we're a Judeo-Christian country, we're patriots, we really want to, rescue our country. And it's like, just FYI, guys, I am an atheist, okay? I am still a liberal. My feeling is all God's out of government, separation of church and state. What you don't appreciate, devout Christians, is that you have a chosen God, and there are millions of people who have none, millions of people who have other gods, many gods, particularly Muhammad, Satanism, all the rest of it. If you open the door to allowing, you push for small government, but you want God, your Christian chosen God, to be in the government, you are opening the door for all these other crackpots, Satanists, Islamists, all these, pagans to have a place, be able to, give their prayers and what have you in that. And I find that incredibly alarming, that you would choose one and go, by the way, we found it. No, I will give you a comparison. I think, a lot of Republicans don't seem to understand how far the left has gone and where they're coming from. I will tell you as an ex-lefty that what they have done, and I think come from a place of good intention, is they are so convinced themselves that they are right, they are correct, they are the kind, moral, appreciative, considerate people, that there's no longer debate. There is no discussion. They won't even open the door. They are looking at one single channel of information, and it's a new righteousness, and it's a righteousness that we last saw with the evangelicals in the 1990s, and you cannot get through to that. Then you have on the right, you have the same righteousness of this Judeo-Christian, like, well, until you find God, you're not really an American. And George Bush did say that after 9/11 and really pissed me off. We're building this Berlin Wall, and if you think you're going to bring this country back together with this sort of push for Christianity, your chosen God, into government, you're going to lose. And in part of this, and I know we're coming off a month of Pride and the vulgar virtue signaling of corporate America and the intrusion of the woke world. We're I think feelings are high. And then I'm noticing comments about, and angry comments about, log cabin Republicans. So log cabins are the gay group, and they are LGBT, transgender. Now, I am transgender is an oxymoron. I'm going to put it right out here, and if I was on YouTube, they would ban me. I'm not on YouTube. I'm on BitChute, and I can freaking say what I want. It is gender dysphoria. It is a mental illness. If you endorse T and LGB, you are also endorsing LGBT as a mental illness. Okay, it is not a mental illness. It used to be defined as that. The medical institutions, the medical practice have debunked that. The psychological people, decades ago. It is not. So we have, and for me, it was like I don't have a place on the left because they're all absolutely lost their minds. And on the right, we're not sure where we're going to be. I think there's a lot of Republicans that go, I have that thing about, same gender or same sex people having relations. Well, quite frankly, I have, a problem imagining whatever you guys do. Well, that's, to each their own. But most Republicans, I think, have got to the point where they're thinking, I really don't have an issue with, maybe gay marriage and all the rest of it. Live and let live, it's fine. It's, my cousin is gay and my uncle is gay. And, it's those gay guys, who moved in next door. And have you seen what they're doing with that house? Oh my God, here comes the neighborhood. It's that sort of thing, like they're not intruding. Now they are intruding. Now they are, drag queen story time with, critical theory, critical race theory pushed into it. There is this whole woke indoctrination, and now I'm seeing the fights with log cabin. Now, log cabin Republicans, even as a liberal, thought, this is where my natural place should be. These conservative homosexuals. So, I quite frankly was really annoyed that log cabins didn't have a Phoenix chapter for years. They had a Tucson chapter, and finally they got one. And, I went to the opening. Kelly Ward's there. Marissa Hamilton is there and spoke. And the thing that struck me about them, they were incredibly polite. And they had two people ask me my opinions, and I'm very free giving my opinions. And at the end of it, they would thank me for giving my opinion. Well, if that was on the left, they would be spitting and angry and like, how dare you not groupthink? How dare you not think like we do? And I thought, well, that's a rather pleasant change. However, I had a problem with T. LGB, it's never T. And they asked me to be involved. They asked me to take over social media. There was a person who had done it and really was too busy and resigned. So I did, and I was involved on the Facebook group, and I was posting exposes of transgender, and I constantly became censored, and finally it was like, okay, I'm out. I can't deal with this. And I was briefly involved with the Janet Jackson for Arizona State House campaign, and Janet called me and said, there's a log cabin event that I've been invited to, and she wasn't invited as Janet Jackson to speak. A candidate, she was just invited to be included and I guess endorse it, and it was, their pride party. And so I was like, oh, well, I haven't been involved in it, just let me go and look. And I had one look at it, and it's, little pride flags, pride banners, and it was just, apart from the fact they're conservative and Christian, you couldn't tell the difference. And I was like, oh, hell no, I'm not going with you. And if you want to go, great. I just don't think it's a good time for you to be going there. And just in full disclosure, my roommate is on the board of log cabins. He is also the campaign manager for Kari Lake for Arizona governor. And we've had some quite strong conversations about this. And I think, quite frankly, he is not seeing the danger with whatever they're doing. And he said, they have more than one. So let me explain to you why I have a problem with transgender as the word. First of all, stop using that term. It is a woke speak word. There is no such thing as transgender. You cannot transgender your sexuality no more than you can transgender your race or your species or any other crazy mental illnesses of the left. You can cut up your body with surgery. You can fill it with all sorts of hormones and other medications that are disruptive. Your mind might think it's something else. Your body knows what gender it is, what sex it is. So it is an oxymoron. Stop using that term. It is gender dysphoria. It is a mental illness, or it's gender disassociation. And and this is not new to all of us. There's been over 100 years of research, and usually, and I've had to, because I was a vanilla gay man, I was like, what the hell is all this? And they're not drag queens. They really want to change. I was like, I like men. I like all the outy parts that they have. And it's like, why on earth would I want to destroy that? All men, we're all fascinated by the stuff that we have there. I had to go and do the research and read and listen to videos. And the truth of this is what the history of this is that, usually it was young boys. It was, 4 and 5, and like, mommy, I really think I'm a girl, what have you. And, we have a record of this, and all of a sudden it is a female thing. It's, a teenage thing. We have the woke people who want to be kind and considerate And quite frankly, what they're doing with their endorsement, they're abusing young people. So if you allow transgender, if you say it's LGBT, you are basically saying that gay people is also a mental illness. And it is not. And majority, and you need to separate, there are transgender who are gay. There are transgender who are heterosexual. So ask Bruce Jenner, and Bruce Jenner will tell you right out, I'm not gay. I think I'm a woman, but I'm attracted to women. And what we're finding is by, letting them in here, and this is going to be the problem for the GOP with log cabins. If you allow that, if you endorse log cabins, if you endorse the T, what you are basically doing, you're allowing these mentally ill people gaining access to young girls and women. That's what the agenda is, and you need to wake up and stand it up. Now, I will give you an example. I was, that roll of videos on Facebook, and here's a nurse, and she's got her own little blog, and she's a gynecologist, and she wanted to talk about a vagina. And I'm like, oh, okay, no, I'm about to flip on, and she was very compelling. I thought, take a few seconds. The last time I was near a vagina was my mother's, and she was birthing me, and it's just not a part I want to get intimate with or know anything about. And she was amazing. And at the end of it, I suddenly thought, my God, this is an amazing, bodily organ, creates life, and it has all these different ways that it controls itself. And I'm like, oh my God, this is pretty amazing. And then you have these gender confused men who think that by having a surgically constructed hole in their body, it's equivalent to a vagina. And I was like, do you know how patronizing and condescending that is to the vagina, to women, to even believe that? So if you're going along with this, that's basically what you are saying. You are speaking against biology, you're speaking against science, and it is a complete fraud. And the fracture that's going to happen is in the GOP is that you're seeing people like the Federation of Republican Women is endorsing the log cabin Republicans, and I think quite frankly they're doing it out of naivety. The thing that really disturbs me with what's going on is noticing, one, the vitriol in the forums, but we have a young man, Ethan Schmidt, who I got to know through Patriot Party, through the anti-mask brigade. And Ethan, very nice young guy, and had a lot of passion, and went into Sprouts and a lot of these stores, with the whole group. He raised a group, anti-mask, what have you. I understood why he was doing it, even though I didn't want to be involved with that, because I understood the passion. I understood the frustration of, going into a store and being denied access because you had to, wear the stupid mask. But then I watched Ethan get more and more radical.
Ethan Schmidt here, founder of the Anti-Maskers Club. Today we're going to be going hunting for LGBT pedophiles and non-binaries and groomers. LGBT, we're hunting for you. We're going to hunt you down. If you're affiliated with LGBT, you're going to be hunted down and exposed.
And disturbing, beginning trouble, for concern for him, concern for the trouble that he was going to arrest records, is going to track him through the rest of his life. And then he was in Target.
Okay guys, Target is taking it to the next level here. They got Pride plates, they got Pride cups, they got that crap, they got that crap. Love is not a crime. They got LED lights. I'm gonna go after Target so hard this month that they're gonna have to ban me from every single Target in the whole entire United States. Okay, here it is. Look at this. Take pride and go to hell. What does it say? Wow, humankind is a gender inclusive and LGBTQIA ABCDEFG focused swimwear line, queer and female founded. Humankind is for multiple body types. Wow. Disgusting, man. Here, we gotta go after these people right here. These are the enemies right here. Let's go after all these guys. Let's figure out where they live. Let's go after them hard. Bunch of child groomers is what they are.
And he was, loudly exposing Target for the Pride apparel for children. I am 100% aboard with him on that. I won't shop at Target. I won't shop and endorse, support any company that virtue signals with the rainbow banner. But then he's taking merchandise, filming it, and destroying it. Well, first of all, that's a criminal act. I'm not going to endorse it. And it really made me worry, is this about anger for, and fighting back against the pride agenda? Or is this just, classic old homophobia? And, I mentioned it to my roommate, and he said, you know what, let's get them together. Let's sort of, log cabin Republican board member. Let's have a sit down and chat to Ethan and explore this. Well, I messaged him and then, of course, realized he's permanently banned from Facebook, and the only place to find him is on Telegram. And then I was this week, I had a conversation completely nothing to do with this, with a realtor colleague who called me, and, it was about applying for a job and having, it's not really criminal, but having a record. And he didn't disclose it because it had been expunged, and he, quite frankly, he should have done. And I was sort of relating, the problem is, when you have stuff like that, domestic violence, what have you, once it's in the courts, it's tracked. There's record. And I mentioned Ethan by first name, and that was my concern. And he said, oh, I know that guy. And I was like, oh, how do you know him? So I know him and I know his buddies. And he said, what really troubles me is that allegedly they're going on Grindr. And Grindr is the gay hookup sexual app, pretending to be a gay man, he and his buddies. And basically what they're trying to do is entice gay men into criminal acts. Okay? Agent provocateur again, just like in the 1970s. I find that really, really, really disturbing. So my conflict is I'm supporting the Patriots. I support what he's doing. And then I see that, and I see this, what I see is absolute old-fashioned homophobia. So the GOP need to come to terms with it. The Patriot Party needs to come to terms with it. The Patriot Party needs to take this kid aside and tell him right out, you got to keep away the criminal acts. You cannot start targeting the gay man. You are no different to the skinheads in the 1970s who used to line up outside the gay pubs at closing time to beat up on gay men. You are no different to the Nazi youth, the brown shirts, that used to go and attack Jews. You are a thug. And I am concerned for the GOP because I think, they're trying to do good. They're trying to be, open. They're trying to win. And quite frankly, you're not going to win if you cannot win over more votes. If you think you just have the votes that you have and that's the rest of it. No, even if you win, you have to deal with all these people who 100% don't agree with you. And my concern as a gay man is that we're going to be on the end of it. We're going to be, back in the same position where we've seen it in Poland, we've seen it in Russia, we've seen it in Eastern Europe, we've seen it in Hungary, where they're bringing in legislation against homosexuals. They're, beating up people in gay parades. They're beating up gay people who are just going about their business. That's the swing. And I absolutely lay this 100% on the door of the LGBT pride people who have pushed this to the point of absurdity. And I'm also seeing in Patriots where all of a sudden the LGBTQ bullshit plus is all of a sudden being understood as being pedophilia, supporting pressing. I have no idea where that's coming from, and I have asked Kevin, what the hell does the plus mean? And no idea. So I don't know if that's just a conspiracy theory, what have you. But quite frankly, you can understand where it's coming from. Drag queen story time. Desmond is amazing. All this last week it was, I'm so happy that my toddlers and my little children are exposed to kink, by exposing them to a gay parade. You have to understand there are so many gay people, conservative, not conservative, liberal like me, lefties like, that I used to be, who don't endorse this, who are frightened of this. And log cabin Republicans are completely naive. They are petrified that their first member, gender dysphoric, and now they have more, is going to sue them. And it's like, well, find your freaking balls and stand up to them. You know, find your own group. Don't discriminate against them. They need a place in society. They don't need to replace society. They don't need a place in women's locker rooms and changing rooms and in women's sports. I would absolutely, you know, condemn any discrimination against them, but they're not LGB, okay? They need to find their own place. So that's my rant for 4th of July. I really appreciate you listening to that. GOP, Patriot Party, guys, you need to get rid of red pill. You need to start focusing on this, because all the candidates that you're running, and particularly for governor and Senate and Congress, they're going to be asked this question. And you're going to live or die on your vote how you deal with this. And there needs to be real honesty. We need to come out and stop using, as I've said before, stop using woke world grammar. This is gender dysphoria. This is gender disassociation. It is a mental disease. Stop using transgender. It is an oxymoron. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful week.